Hello and welcome back to another episode of Injustice For All MMA. My name is David, and this episode is for UFC Fight Night Rodriguez versus Waterson. Now, the fight was great, but the theme of this, the fights were great, but the theme of this entire card, once again, is one random judge seems to not be able to get certain rounds right. I knew this would come around one day where, an entire card was filled with just weird inconsistencies. But thank goodness that none of these random fleeting scorecards actually affected any of the fights. Right? In all the fights, all the fighters that won were the rightful winners. There were just some scorecards that were a little weird. First of all, there are no injustices on the card at all. So that's good. I don't think we've had that in quite a while. But since we have no injustices, we just go straight to the honorable mentions. The first honorable mention is for the first fight, Park versus Nchukwi. I'll read off my scorecard. I had 30-26. Those were all 10-9s, except for the second where Nchukwi was deducted a point for the second groin strike. The judges' scorecards is where we get into people seeing things a lot different. So for Tony Weeks, he had a 28-28. Saul D'Amato had a 29-26. And Ron McCarthy had a 30-25. Now, we're going to start with Ron McCarthy. Actually, we're not going to start with Ron McCarthy. We're going to start off with the rounds that seem to be... In fact, we have to start off with the entire fight. So, what happened in the first round? In the first round, it's plain and simple. Park outstruck Nchukwi. Okay. In the second round, same thing. Just at the very end, Park went for a submission attempt right at the buzzer and almost got it, but he didn't get it. In the third round, Park had 2 takedowns, a lot of ground and pound, with over 2 minutes of control time. So this feels like a standard 30-27. For some reason, right, minus the deduction. For some reason, all 3 judges somehow couldn't get a 30-27, which is fine. I'm not mad at the 29-28. I'm a little mad at it, but I think who I'm really pissed at is Tony Weeks here, who has a 28-28, who decided somehow, some way, this fight is a draw. Now, in the first round, he gives it to Nchukwi, which makes no sense because he's being outstruck. I don't like to bend off of the unofficial numbers. I don't like that because I'm just going to be honest. I don't feel like the unofficial numbers are right. There's been many times where they were wrong. But we know that Park outstruck Nchukwi in that first round. And he's the only judge who had a 10-9 for Nchukwi. We're going to go to the second, where he gets deducted a point. Nchukwi gets deducted a point. Deducted a point. And yet he still loses the round, by the way. Understandably, he does pick up the pace, but Park still outstrikes him and has a sub attempt at the very end. Even if you take away the sub attempt, he still wins the round. Park does. But 2 judges decide, hey, we think he won the round, and that's Saul D'Amato and Tony Weeks. So off the bat, it's looking a little iffy. So that's where you get the 9-9 from Tony Weeks and a 9-9 from Saul D'Amato. And then in the final round, Tony Weeks gets the right, he gets the right round, right, which is it's a 10-9. It's confusing. I don't know what Tony Weeks wants. He gets a 10-9 here, but the other two judges give out 10-8s. Now, I don't like the 10-8. I think it's a bit much. I think, again, I think this is another instance of there's no need for a 10-8 here. This is just a standard, I took you down in the middle of the round, and here's a lot of ground and pound. Honestly, I want to give all three judges here an honorable mention for just fucking up this scorecard. But it has to go to Tony Weeks for thinking that this entire fight was a draw is an injustice in and of itself. But this is an honorable mention category, so that goes to Tony Weeks. The next honorable mention is for Klein versus Tresano. Now this fight was very close, but I'll read off my scorecard. I had a 29-28 for Tresano, giving him a 10-9 in the last two rounds. Now, the judges saw it differently, obviously, or else I wouldn't be saying this. Derek clearly had a 29-28. He sort of mixed up the rounds a little bit. He gave a 10-9 for Tresano in the first, and then a 10-9 for Klein in the second. That doesn't really make sense, but I'll explain in a second. Judge Bird has a 10-9 for Klein in the first, and then also a 10-9 in the last two rounds, giving that a 29-28. And then Camija has a 30-27 for Tresano, which, again, right person won, disagree on that first round. So we're going to start off with the first round. First and the second, because those are the two disagreements here. Derek Curley gave a 10-9 to Klein in the second. In that second round, I'm kind of jumping the gun here. Camija and Clearly gave a 10-9 to Tresano. In that very first round, Tresano's walking Klein down, right? But Klein is the one that lands the most shots. He lands the most, and he gets a takedown. Objectively speaking, that's his round. It's his round, and it's weird that only one judge saw it that way. In the second round, it's very even from both fighters. And Klein got a takedown at the very end, but Tresano was very active on the ground, on his back. This is one of those fights. This is one of those instances where it's very even on the feet, and at the very end, the opponent goes for that takedown where it's supposed to sway the judges, but he just holds him there. Klein holds Tresano there, and Tresano is going to town with ground and pound. It's obvious that it's his round. And thankfully, two judges saw it that way. I'm thankful two judges saw it that way, because it's one of those things where you can't just hold your opponent down and expect for the judges to just say, hey, this is your round. it's obvious that Tresano won that round, but clearly sees it opposite. And then in the third, everyone agrees on the third. But that honorable mention, it has to go to Derek, clearly, because in that second round, it's very even. And you just can't reward a fighter who takes you down and just holds you there. He held him there for that, I want to say, last 30 seconds to a minute, and delivers no ground and pound of his own while he's just taking shots from Trizano. And also, another honorable mention for Camija for that first round that obviously went to Klein. All right, we go to another fight. Hawes versus Daukaus. For me, this was a 30-27. This was fairly easy to score, but a lot of these, when Bruce was reading out these cards, a lot of these just really burnt my brain out. Especially the 28-28 really killed me. But this is Hawes versus Daukaus. I give it 30-27 for Hawes. Tony Weeks read it 30-26. Mike Bell wrote it 30-26. And you're going to kill me. And Saul D'Amato had it 29-27. Now, all three judges at the end for the third round gave a 10-8. I'll tell you what happened in the third. Because, honestly, it's hurting me. It's really hurting me. Haas got a takedown. A lot of ground and pound for about 3+ minutes. Okay. Still doesn't warrant a 10-8. I feel like anytime someone gives ground and pound, they just really want to give 10-8s. This is an unnecessary 10-8. There's no need for this. Now, the honorable mention's obviously going to Saul D'Amato. It should go to all of them for the 10-8s, but it's going to Saul D'Amato especially because he gives a 10. He gives a 10-9 to Daukaus, and I assume he just got swayed by all the grappling, all the pushes to the fence, and all the clinch wars, when he just missed the fact that Haas outstruck him in the second. Just clearly. He clearly outstruck him. And the other two judges saw that, but Saul D'Amato didn't. So, the honorable mention goes to Saul D'Amato for that. All right, next honorable mention. This one, the reason why I then remember why I do this now. Because I look at some of these scorecards, and, maybe when I started this, I was stupid to say that, I could probably score these better than that. But sometimes these confuse me. They confuse me because there are some that are just so easy that they just don't make any sense. And sometimes I think to myself, you know what, maybe I'm too hard on the 10-8s, and on the, you're doing too much on the 10-8s, you're doing too much. And then I realize to myself, no, I don't think I'm doing too much on these 10-8s. I think these guys really are itching to give a 10-8. And a perfect example of that would be the Greene versus Lima fight. Now, I gave a 30-27 to Lima. And the judges gave it a little differently. Tony Weeks had it 30-26. Chris Lee had it 30-27. And Camija had it also 30-26. Now, you're thinking to yourself, why is it 30-26 on two judges' scorecards? When 3 rounds straight were the exact same thing. Now, I'm just going to read off my notes just to make sure I have it correctly. Okay. In the first round, Lima got a takedown with ground and pound 3+ minutes. Same thing in the second. Same thing in the third, but less ground and pound, really, in that third round. The second and the two are basically identical. But for some reason, Tony Weeks and Camija decided, you know what, we'll just give it 10-8 here. Even though all three rounds are virtually identical. They're all the exact same round. Lima goes for the takedown, takes him down, proceeds to ground and pound. And then, rest a little bit, ground and pound, rest. Right? It's a steady round for him. If you're going to give it 10-8 in this second, then you might as well give it 10-8 in the first, where he did most of his damage. You might as well give it 10-8 for that third. Now, I know they wouldn't give for the third because, like I said here, in the third, it's less ground and pound. He gave less ground and pound. But it's about the same ground and pound he gave in the second that he did in the first. There's no need to just throw in a 10-8 here. This is just another instance of let's see how many 10-8s we can give for no godly reason. And the honorable mention goes to Tony Weeks again, who's lighting it up right now. Tony Weeks and Camija for that. Next honorable mention is Magny versus Neal. My scorecard reads 29-28, giving Magny 10-9 in the last two rounds. Derek clearly had it 29-28. Saul Diamata also had it 29-28. And then Ron McCarthy had it 30-27. Now, he gave it 10-9 to Magny in the first. And what confuses me is, well, at the very end of the first, Magny finished very well, right? He landed a couple shots at the end, a couple nice shots at the end that finished the end of the round. This was at the very end of the round. Very end of the round. This wasn't like he finished the last minute. He finished like the last 30 seconds of that round very well. But in the entirety of the round, of the very first round, Neal landed the much better shots throughout that entire round, and he pushed the pace. Objectively speaking, again, that is his round. Thankfully, two judges saw that exact thing, but I assume McCarthy just saw the end of the first and decided, hey, this is his round. Again, this is... I don't know what to say. It's nitpicking. I know. I'm thinking to myself, I'm nitpicking at this point. But it's not a 30-27. This is a 29-28. Honorable mention goes to Ron McCarthy. And then the final honorable mention for Rodriguez versus Waterson. My scorecard reads 49-46. Now, this stuff actually hurts me. Okay? Because I like this sort of stuff. I like when people score 5-round fights correctly, because it shows that you're paying attention. And niggas aren't paying attention. People aren't paying attention. Okay? I had it 49-46. Okay, and the only off round that Rodriguez got was in the fourth, where where Waterson got a 10-9, right, making it 49-46. Two judges saw it my way, so it saw it the exact same way I scored it. Obviously, the fourth round being the takedown with the ground and pound. Derek clearly somehow saw it differently. I'm confused. It actually doesn't make sense. It actually doesn't make sense. In that first round, they're feeling each other out. And the only memorable thing in that first round is Rodriguez lands the bigger shots. By the way, not only does she land the bigger shots, she lands more shots than Waterson did. And he gives the round to Waterson. That's an honorable mention for Derek, clearly. And honestly, that's about it. This card was really nice. Real great night of fights. Again, only issue that really spazzed me was, for some reason, every time Bruce read out the scorecards, it was just one scorecard or two that were just odd. And again, for the Park fight, a 28-28 just means you're just not watching, man. Hell, even in this Rodriguez fight, giving a 10-9 to Waterson in the first means you're definitely not watching. That's all I got. Until next week. Again, thanks for listening, and God bless.